to you. 030 80 55 55 is the number to call this morning. Naser Turabi is listening from Cancer Research UK. Naser, good morning.
Good morning.
Set out for us, please, sir, how bad Northern Ireland is compared to the rest of the UK.
Well, we can compare statistics between England and Scotland because they measure it in roughly the same way. And the key stat that we're looking at is the number of patients who are treated within 62 days each month. And in England, that's running about 60%. In Scotland, that's running about 70%, both way off target at 85%. And in Northern Ireland, that's down at about 30%. And what I'm actually worried about is that there's quite a lot that we don't know. So what we don't know is the number of people waiting untreated on those waiting lists, and we don't know how long they've been waiting. So it is definitively much worse in Northern Ireland than the rest of the UK.
Sorry, what do you mean we don't know? We've got waiting list statistics, don't we?
So what we know, it's quite nuanced. So what we know is the number of people treated each month. What we don't know is the number of people sitting on the waiting list, waiting for treatment. So we might not be treating enough of those people. The other aspect of this is the only thing that we're measuring, at least publicly, is the performance, the time waited for those people who had a red flag referral. Those red flag referrals only constitute about 35% of cancer diagnoses. So our first call at Cancer Research UK is to really understand the scale and severity of the problem and so there's a lot of cancer cases that get diagnosed because someone's been referred to hospital for other reasons. So, they might have gone with irritable bowel syndrome that turns out to be bowel cancer, for example.
But why? I think there's a fundamental basic question here, which is why are we the worst in the UK?
So that's a hard question to answer. I mean, all of everywhere in the world is experiencing a rise in demand, and that's associated with an aging population. It's also associated with a good thing, which is we're casting the net wider. We don't have brilliant tests for cancer in primary care, so we try and refer people, even with quite a low probability of having cancer, on that red flag pathway. So everyone's experiencing that. And I think certainly capacity hasn't kept up with demand. That's almost just, it's almost obvious if you're not meeting the target. But I think what we can also see is that we really need to target our investment much more carefully. So really what I would like to hear from the Department of Health is not just how they're investing in capacity, but exactly where they're investing in capacity, which hospitals, which cancer tumour sites, so whether it's gynecological cancer or haematological cancer, so that the money, we really make the most of the money that is being invested.
It's interesting because I'm still not, Naser, sorry that I'm doubling down on this question, but I understand that there's pressure on the health service throughout the world and throughout the UK. I understand it. But I'm just kind of frustrated with myself that I have access to these ministers and have access to data and statistics. But my job is to understand, for the people listening to this, why Northern Ireland is the worst in the UK. Is there something particular about here that makes us the worst? We've got to find out what that's all about.
Yeah, well, typically, and I'm not talking about Northern Ireland specifically, but when we see a hospital or a particular service that is not doing well on waiting times, it can be for a number of reasons. So it could be that they don't have enough capacity. Sometimes small services, someone goes on maternity leave, someone goes on sick leave, and the service falls over because it's reliant on two or three people.
That happens everywhere in the UK.
It does, but actually when you have a certain critical mass of doctors and staff, then it's easier to manage those issues. I think the other aspect to this is that until you know in a very detailed way exactly where the problems are, you can't solve those problems. What we're seeing, I think, in Northern Ireland is that there have been data issues. So although we have a certain number of statistics, we don't have a lot of the statistics that people need to manage the service and hold it to account. So that's the first thing. So, for example, in other parts of the UK, the number of people waiting for treatment is published. That's a really important statistic in this case, because that's actually even more important, the number of people treated.
Okay. Naser, thank you very much indeed. Naser Turabi from Cancer Research UK with us this morning. Louise Connolly, our health correspondent, has been reporting a lot about this. You can find her copy on BBC News Online. She'll be on BBC Newsline later on